Danielle Goldapper.
You got it.
I said it right. She has recently partnered with us and is doing so many wonderful things here. She has an amazing class on Wednesdays. It's a strength circuit, and it's on its second week. They just finished their second week, and it's wonderful. It's $5 per class. Anybody's welcome. She just did a goal-setting clinic, and I heard that was also awesome.
Probably better for me than those of you who I met with, but I learned more from you guys.
Yeah. And now she's doing this class for us, so we're just so happy to have you as a partner, and we're so happy you could be here today. So I'm just going to turn it over to you. One last little piece of news: please sign in if you have not. When you leave, please just stop at our office and make sure you sign into today's event. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies. I'm so glad to be here with you. Give yourselves a little quick round of applause for making some time for yourselves today. So here it is. This is why we're all here, because we've got to fight like a girl. And remember when that had a negative connotation? Scrap that idea. Scrap that idea. I'll tell you what. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about myself as we kind of get into the presentation here. But as a personal trainer, I prefer working with women over men for several reasons. But I'm going to tell you, women have a heck of a lot more endurance than men do. And you're a lot stronger than you realize. But we also are fighting an uphill battle. It is critical for us to fight to keep and build bone and muscle mass. And here's why. Let's do a quick show of hands here as we kind of talk about these numbers. At what age do we begin to lose muscle mass? I've got 3 ages up here, the age of 30, 35, and 40. Raise your hand. Look, it's no big deal. We're all going to learn today, so including myself. So if you don't have the right answer on this question, it's not a big deal. We're going to learn and keep going. Who thinks that 30 is the year when most women begin to lose muscle mass? Lots of hands. Very good. 35. Okay, got a few hands here. 40. All right. I wish it was 40. It's not 40. It's not 35. According to a 2016 Harvard publication, we start losing 3 to 5% of our muscle mass per decade, starting at the age of 30. Less muscle means greater weakness and less mobility, both of which increase your risks for injury. Let's do one more question. Approximately how many women over the age of 50 will break a bone because of osteoporosis? We've got 3 options again. We've got 1 in 5, 20%, 1 in 4, 25%, 1 in 2, 50%. Raise your hand for 20. Got a couple people. All right, how many of you think that 25% of women over the age of 50 will break a bone because of osteoporosis? Good show of hands. 1 in 2, 50%. Yeah, I wish it was the lower numbers. It's 50%. 50% of women over 50 will break a bone because of osteoporosis. So, who am I? Why do I care about this? This is me. I'm real buff there. I get to give myself a title now because I don't work for anybody else. So my title is Evolution Ambassador, and I take that with such great joy. I love helping people become the best version of themselves. Today I am a National Academy of Sports Medicine certified personal trainer. That's a lot of words to say that I've learned how to work with people on exercising. And I am a KBCU Level 2 kettlebell coach. That may mean next to nothing to any one of you, but for me, that was probably the greatest learning environment for me. I did get an undergraduate degree from the Catholic University of America as a communication studies major. I was going to take Dan Rather's job. I was convinced that by the time I graduated from college in 2000, Dan Rather was going to be ready to retire, and they were going to say, hey, this young girl over there, she knows how to talk herself in circles. We're going to put her on the news. It didn't happen. So but that's okay. The KBCU certification was a 16-week in-depth learning process as well as exercise program that I was going through for certification and teaching people how to master the use of kettlebells for every kind of exercise you can possibly think of. And I was one of the 2 women in the group who was over the age of 40. Everybody else in my certification group was in their 20s. And it was intimidating. I definitely felt inferior to their strength and energy. They are my closest friends now. I am so grateful. I'm going down to Tennessee to see one of my girlfriends in just a couple of months to celebrate her 30th birthday. So it's fantastic. Here's why I care about this topic. I am a woman who plans to live for a long time. I want to be healthy to do it. My kids are about to be 21, 19, and 12. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about them. But I have a long ways to go. I train women every day between the ages of 14 and 72. I've personally experienced bone replacement. At the age of 3, I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. They told my parents I would be in a wheelchair by the time I was 5. And at that point in time, they didn't encourage a whole lot of activity. They said, take it easy. We want to do everything we can to not have you in pain. Medicine wasn't the same then that it is now. I do have a child who has rheumatoid arthritis who has been given medicine that completely eradicates the presence of the disease, and I'm grateful for that. We'll tell you a little more about that as well. I love seeing women grow in their confidence and strength. Women have a unique gift of caring for one another. We've been really good at caring for our children and our husbands and everybody else who we love. A lot of us care for our parents as well. And I have come to see more women who gain physical strength, grow in confidence, and share that with other women. It is contagious. So I care deeply about this subject for those reasons. We all start somewhere. Don't feel like you've got to come in and be knowing exactly what you have to do. I'm going to fully admit that I started for cosmetic purposes. At 40 years old, I was 185 pounds. I was not exercising. I started exercising because I was having some hip pain. And then I started losing some weight, and it felt good to be thin. Who remembers Jane Fonda? We love Jane Fonda, right? I still wish leg warmers would come back. But I grew up, you guys grew up in the mentality of women exercise to be what? Thin. Skinny. Skinny. We exercise to be skinny, not strong. I am very, very grateful that that rhetoric has changed. Today in the gym, I see a lot of young women in their teens coming in, pushing the guys aside and using the heavy weights. They're training for strength. This was just this February, 45 pounds less than that was at the age of 40. Here I am at 46, and it is about strength. And I will tell you, we all start somewhere, so don't hesitate. And it is never too soon or too late to start. Here's a little range of some of the women who I get to work with. Starting down at the very first picture down there on the left, that's my daughter when she was 10 years old. And I started training with her. I started to say to you, I have 3 kids. My oldest will be 21 in a couple of weeks here. I have a 19-year-old and a 12-year-old. I spent 25 years working full-time in event planning and marketing. I loved that work, but I will tell you, I was always chasing a carrot. I was always chasing a title. It didn't feel terribly rewarding for me. At the end of the day, I rarely could put my head on the pillow and turn it off. There was always more that I knew I didn't get done that day. Now I put my head on the pillow at night with a lot of excitement and gratitude for the women I get to work with, women of every age. I used to run half marathons. I've run 3 half marathons in my life before I got my hip replaced. I did 3 half marathons. I was always doing aerobics to get skinny, to get thin. It never worked. It never worked. Finally, I found strength training. it helped me with body recomposition, but it helped me with health and made me want to share that with other people. In today's discussion, I want to talk with you guys about the lifelong benefits of strength training that I know are setting me up for a vibrant senior lifestyle that will allow me to travel and be independent. And I want to share these experiences with you so that you can share them with your children, your grandchildren, and however many generations we all get the opportunity to enjoy. So, just a quick note, osteoporosis makes joint replacements very dangerous. Sorry, I skipped a page here. I should have done note cards instead of a printout. I apologize for that. Osteoporosis is a disease that slows the growth of healthy bones over time. When bones don't grow healthy cells, the remaining healthy cells start to deteriorate. As we looked at in that first kind of questionnaire, 1 in 2 women and then 1 in 4 men over the age of 50 will have an osteoporosis-related fracture in their lifetime, according to a 2020 NIH journal publication. This is actually a picture of the x-ray of my hip. And I'll tell you that having weakened bones does make it more challenging for implants, for joints, for joint replacements to actually fuse to the bones. In all of the implant scenarios, the metal, the body safe metal that's put into the bone is meant to graft to the bone. You have to have strong bones in order to, A, withstand what the doctors do to you during surgery to actually implant those various replacement joints. The doctor who did my replacement said, you know, in women with your frame, with a smaller frame, it's really common during the surgery to see the bones themselves fracture. And then they have to, during surgery, do additional work to bind the bone to the metal replacement. So there's the increased risk of fragility fractures during surgery, as well as increased risk of post-surgical breakage. If osteoporosis is already set in, that's weakening the bones, causing poor or even no fusing with the implant. And a fall that happens even several years after having a joint replacement in a patient who has osteoporosis can cause the weakened bones and even the implant to break. So there's all these scary reasons that this is important, but hang with me, there's good news too, okay? This isn't all just gloom and doom. Let's talk about what we're going to cover today, okay? Because I don't want you to be scared by this. We're going to cover that the understanding the relationship between muscle loss and bone deterioration with aging as women, why muscle mass is critical for women, the role of strength training in combating muscle loss, and practical tips for incorporating the strength training into your daily life. This doesn't have to be an all-consuming process. So let's jump right into understanding muscle mass and aging. So good bone health affects your ability to stay active and healthy throughout life. As we can see in this graph here, about the age of 30, you've reached your female peak bone mass. Your bones are growing in strength up to the age of 30, and then we start to see that decline. As our body's ability to produce estrogen drops, that directly impacts our body's ability to build bone mass. There's often, unfortunately, no symptoms for osteoporosis until you're faced with a fracture. So all of a sudden, something else doesn't feel right. Hopefully it's just a fracture. Hopefully it's not a bone, but something doesn't feel right. Many people go undiagnosed for quite a long time because we're used to aches and pains, so we shake it off for a while. We don't go see the doctor right away. And before we know it, we start to find out that, hey, I've already been fighting osteoporosis for a while. Have any of you ever done a DEXA scan? Have you ever heard of a DEXA scan? The sad news is America's health insurance isn't very friendly in some of the preemptive testing that we can do in order to better understand where our bone mass is. DEXA scans are not typically covered by health insurance before the age of 60, which is unfortunate because they're really valuable by the time you're 40 to know what your baseline is. A DEXA scan is a very uninvasive way to measure what your bone density is. Depending on where you go, I've never seen it cost more than $400. Unfortunately, that's $400 that most medical insurance companies do not reimburse. But that is the one preventative measurement that really can tell you where you're starting from in terms of your bone mass. Bone is a living tissue, and it's constantly changing. And some of the things that can impact that are our nutrition, our physical activity, and our hormone levels. When we're talking about the nutrition aspect of it, there are a couple of key factors. I'm going to get a little scientific here, but none of this is going to sound totally foreign to any of you. They talk about this all the time on the news. Actually, you guys could probably tell me, what are some of the things that you know are good for your bones? What kinds of vitamins or minerals? Think about it. Calcium, vitamin D, you got two of them. Magnesium, and one more big one. It's also good for muscles, really good for muscles. Protein. Protein. Do any of you measure how much protein you eat on a daily basis? You do. If you had to get, on average, what do you think you're getting in terms of?
Well, my dietitian wants me to get about 75, but I usually get about 50.
All right.
And that's as a non-meat eating person.
That's a struggle. That's a struggle. That makes it even harder to get protein. When I talk about protein, do most of you know what foods are rich in protein? Red meat is one of the most dense protein sources, but meat in general, fish, chicken, lamb, eggs are a great one. Cottage cheese. How many times have you guys been told, eat more cottage cheese? It's kind of a joke in the conversations around menopause. Hey, put more cottage cheese on it and you'll get there to your protein goal. The number that your dietitian has you working up to is a lot lower than the number that I have most of my clients working for. I encourage my clients who are working on building muscle mass to attempt to eat in grams the same amount of protein as their desired body weight. So if your desired body weight is 125 pounds, look to eat 125 grams of protein a day. The average American is eating less than that. The average American is eating well under 100 grams of protein a day. And for the vegetarian and vegan Americans, they tend to have a diet that's closer to that 50 grams a day of protein. So that's with trying. So to that extent, think about if you're trying to build muscle and bone mass, and you know that you need significant amounts of protein, the average diet has less than half of that. That's easier than exercising, right? Like eating more food. Oh my God, I'm telling you to eat more food. It's real. Do it. I swear, it's one of the best things for you. Eat more of the right foods, as well as weight-bearing exercises, which we will talk some more about. During the normal aging process, both bone mass and bone strength decrease. So that muscle loss is called sarcopenia, and the bone loss is is the osteoporosis. So you'll hear me using both of those terms a little bit. So we talked about the bone loss as we age. Let's look at the muscle loss as we age. And this one, I thought it was kind of interesting to show you some of the difference between men and women in terms of the percentages of the muscle mass. So 18 to 35-year-old men, on average in the United States, have 40 to 44% of their overall body mass as muscle. For women, it's 31 to 33 on average, okay? So they're already starting with significantly more muscle mass than us. Ladies, it's okay. It's good that we have a little bit of fat on our bones. It's good for us. Our bodies do need that. But men are starting from a stronger place than we are in terms of muscle mass. By 36 to 55 for men, they're coming down to 35 to 40%. We're dropping down into 29 to 31%. By the time men get to the age of 56, they're on average in a range of 32 to 35%, where women are now coming down below 30, 27 to 30%. And then it continues on from 76, men are dropping underneath 31%, women are dropping under 26%. So we're starting with less muscle mass than men to start off with. So that's one of the reasons that it's already so critical for us. And then we get the joy, and we'll talk some more about what happens as estrogen starts to drop. That muscle deterioration, as I said, is called sarcopenia, and that's diagnosed based on a combination of low muscle mass and either low muscle strength or low muscle endurance. And as I said, that continues to drop. Currently, it's estimated that that sarcopenia ranges from 5 to 13% of the population having that in the ages of 60 and older, and that increases to up to 50% in people over the age of 80 having sarcopenia, having a significant loss of muscle mass and muscle performance. And scientists believe that physically inactive and eating an unhealthy diet strongly contributes to that disease. And here's why. I don't know if you guys can read this happy little small note here. Thanks, menopause. Let's just thanks menopause. We get so many great things that happen. It's not just hot flashes, but the estrogen declines. And when estrogen declines, menopause leads to a significant drop in those levels. That hormone plays a crucial role in maintaining bone density. This reduction accelerates bone resorption, which is the breakdown of the bones, leading to a decreased bone mass and higher risk of osteoporosis. Then we have the actual changes in the muscle mass itself. Lower estrogen levels also affect muscle mass by reducing protein synthesis. So while you have less muscle, it's harder to recreate that protein within our bodies that is used for the breakdown of muscle tissue that then rebuilds. Hence the reason that we need to increase our protein intake. Another just natural byproduct, reduced physical therapy, activity. As a natural response to the fatigue many women experience throughout the hormonal shifts. You get exhausted, you're wiped out, not to mention the fact that we're taking care of everybody else and every other thing in the world. So what gets put to the side? Us. Our health. We put off the time for us. It's a very natural byproduct of life. We are the caregivers. We're the ones who take care of everybody else. And there's not a woman in this room who wouldn't get up and leave right now if their kids said they needed them. Am I right? Who would get off the treadmill, whether you wanted to be there or not. We're always going to put everybody else first. In the long run, I'm inviting you to invest in yourself so that you can be there to support those loved ones in a more independent manner for a longer period of time. And then the last part is the calcium regulation and balance. Again, that estrogen plays a role in so many of the functions within our body. It does help regulate calcium metabolism. That was another one I think that you said right away when we were talking about the different vitamins that are important for us to include in our diets. And many of you have probably even had your doctors tell you already to start specific supplements of a calcium pill or a vitamin D pill. Calcium plays a critical role in absorption in the digestive system, and that becomes less efficient as the estrogen decreases in our body. So there's the science. Thanks for dealing with me through the science part. I know it's not fun for any of us. Let's talk about,
Can I
yes.
ask a quick question?
Please.
About that absorption. I tried taking calcium supplements when I was younger.
Yeah.
I've been through menopause, all of that good, fun stuff. But my body couldn't tolerate it. It would make me sick.
Yeah, a lot of people do have challenges
So it didn't
with
stay with me, in other words. So what's the best way?
calcium.
What is the best supplement, I guess?
Calcium is a great supplement, but it's hard for our bodies to digest without adequate protein. So chances are the protein intake in your diet at that time didn't support the absorption of that calcium. Yeah, yeah, and it gets that much harder as the estrogen levels drop. All the more reason we have to kind of be thoughtful about how much protein am I taking in. Personally, I stopped counting calories. I don't care. I know how much activity I'm going through each day to burn calories. That's great. I pay much more attention to how much protein am I getting in each meal. For me, my goal is to have about 30 grams of protein in every meal. Yes?
So what would 30 grams of protein look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the morning, I start my morning with a supplement stack. That's a tea, basically, where I have collagen, creatine, and I drink a daily de-bloat so that I don't feel yucky from all the vegetables in my diet. And that has 20 grams of protein in it from the collagen. Then I have 3 eggs typically that I mixed with a 1/4 cup of cottage cheese. Each one of those eggs has 7 grams of protein. And then my 1/4 cup of cottage cheese is gonna give me another 8 grams of protein. So I can't believe I'm rattling this stuff off. I sound like such a geek. But I know that before I go teach my first client or my first class at 6 o'clock in the morning, I'm walking out the door with 35 grams of protein in my system to carry me through until my next meal. I love cheating. I love cheating and not having to do the math. Costco sells these big individual squares of pre-cooked chicken, just grilled chicken, and each square has 24 grams of protein in that square. There you go. I don't have to do any math. I'll dump 2 of those into a saute pan, throw a couple of spices on it, heat up a flour tortilla or 2, and add some lettuce and some chopped up peppers. It takes me less than 10 minutes to have my chicken tortillas for lunch. I have the benefit of coming home and making my meals most of the time, so that's pretty easy. I've found yogurts that are higher in calcium than others. Again, a lot of women have dairy intolerance issues, so that doesn't always work out so well. But there's even non-dairy alternatives that have as many as 15 grams of protein in the individual servings. And then, honestly, I swear by protein shakes. I love my protein shakes and my protein bars. You've got to kind of find different ones that you like. Only because I'm busy and on the go tonight, I'll be out on the field for one of my kids for their lacrosse game, and I'll probably have, if I don't have a protein bar, I'm gonna find a chocolate bar, and that's okay sometimes too.
thing that I found with protein bars is you have to read them, or protein shakes, because I normally have the 30 grams.
Yes,
And then if I accidentally buy like the 8 grams, I'm mad at them.
I would be mad at that too.
And it's not, it's my
There's
fault.
an 8-gram
They're-
protein
they're-
shake.
They're like much smaller.
Oh, like the
Like little-
pre-bottled.
The pre,
Oh,
oh, yes,
okay,
no, we're not
okay.
gonna mix anything.
Okay.
No, no, no.
There are-
And you get the chocolate.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Okay, that's a good thing. Definitely, reading labels is our friends. Reading labels is our friend. Again, don't get hung up on the calorie piece. The more you move, the more you're gonna burn. The more muscle mass you have, the higher your metabolic rate is. So the more you're gonna burn that way too. Your big friend is protein, and it does help process all of these vitamin D, calcium, iron. All of those things play well with protein, and the more protein you have in your body, the better your body can synthesize every one of those. So yes, great point. Let's look at these health impacts of bone and muscle loss. Leading causes of injuries in older adults is falls. And what happens if we fall when our bones are already weak? Breakage, exactly. Not to mention the muscle, having muscle mass can help prevent some of those falls, all right? Mobility, loss of strength limits mobility and independence. In 2020, when I started really having hip pain, I was working in an office as a marketing director, and I convinced them I needed a desk that would go up and down so I didn't always have to sit at my desk, so I could stand at my desk. And I was very thankful for that. But then we would have team meetings, and everyone would be sitting horseshoe style around the table talking. And I kept having to say, guys, I'm sorry, I have to stand up, I have to stand up. I thought it was my rheumatoid arthritis flaring up. What I didn't know and later found out was that I actually had a childhood bone disease that went undiagnosed and untreated. I'm actually glad that that happened because I probably would have had 3 hips by now. So, right, exactly. But what I ended up doing was going to physical therapy and getting some exercises that I started doing very religiously. And I started finding more exercises and really started getting obsessed, if you will, with getting strong. I showed you guys the picture of 40-year-old Danielle versus 46-year-old Danielle, and that 45-pound difference. I'm not gonna lie to you. I originally started strength training for purely cosmetic purposes. I was tired of being the fat girl. I was tired of not feeling pretty. I was tired of not feeling feminine. And I started exercising for cosmetic purposes. When I got diagnosed with the bone disease that told me it was time to replace that hip, everything just kind of came together. And I will never exercise for cosmetic purposes again. The fact that I was able to build up so much muscle mass and bone density had me back in the gym 1 week after my surgery. 1 week. I danced in my kitchen the night that I got a new hip. In my own kitchen. I wasn't at the hospital overnight. I was in the kitchen dancing with my cane. I've got video to prove it. I bought time by building strength. I bought time for not just the hip, but the knee and the ankle and everything down the line that we readjust for when there's pain in one area of our bodies. So I can't say enough about the mobility factor. We already talked about weight. None of us really like the idea of carrying excess weight. The more muscle mass that you have, the higher your metabolism. I think of it this way. Cardio exercise is like getting paid by the hour. You're doing the work, you're getting paid for showing up. Muscle building, strength training, resistance training is like having rental properties that are just feeding you money that you're not having to do any work on. You do the work and it just keeps paying. If you're a good landlord, you keep collecting checks. Heart health. Muscle loss absolutely impacts your cardiovascular health. It can negatively impact, especially those of you, or anybody who has any kind of a heart disease. So overall physical activity is definitely important to stay elevated for bone and muscle loss. And we've got just a couple other notes on here that we want to hit. Hospital complications. Patients who come in with low levels of bone and muscle are more prone to pressure injuries and infections in the hospital. Having more muscle mass actually increases your body's ability to fight off illnesses. Again, it's working with all of the nutrients in your body to help you absorb all of the good things that are in your body and fight off any illnesses. We'll go to breathing problems. If you already have respiratory issues, muscle loss can lead to additional complications. We've got insulin resistance. Anybody have to do your blood sugar checks? Muscles use blood, glucose, or sugar for fuel. Muscle loss increases the risk of insulin resistance. So when your insulin resistance increases, that includes the development of potentially type 2 diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure, and metabolic syndrome. And then we've got breathing problems as well. Muscle loss does exacerbate respiratory issues. We use our muscles to move that diaphragm up and down with every breath. Your core muscles are driving your lung function. So all of that's going to come together. And then life expectancy. There actually have been recent studies tying particularly lower body muscle mass to longevity and longer term mental functioning. So get in those steps, do those extra deadlifts. We'll talk about what those look like. So we've got the role of strength training to combat muscle loss. We've talked about the doom and gloom. Now let's talk about the hope. Let's talk about what we can do. This isn't about what the doctor can give you a pill for. This is about what we now can do to own our own health. And I'm hoping that's why most of you guys are here. So this is the science behind building muscles. So muscle size increases when people continually challenge their muscles. As you deal with higher levels of resistance, whether that be from more weight or more repetitions of an exercise, you actually scar that muscle tissue. The process of building the muscles, it's called hypertrophy, and I always want to say hypertrophy, which it's not. I just like the word trophy because I like to win. So I like to see people win. So I'm going to call it hypertrophy, but that's not what it is. It's hypertrophy. That's what increases the size of muscles. When muscle fiber is able to endure that sustained damage that comes from extra strain on it, it then starts to build more muscle. It needs not just that strain from the exercise, but also the nutrients that we talked about earlier in order for that to work. So all the bicep curls and deadlifts in the world aren't going to actually make you stronger if you're not eating well to support it. They go together. So we've got to make sure that we've got that protein, that calcium, that vitamin D in our systems along with doing the work. So during that process of repair and new muscle growth, the most important nutrient that comes into the picture is protein. So it all comes back together, and that helps rebuild those little micro tears in all of the muscles and build muscle growth. And here we are back to that bone stuff. Strength training stimulates bone remodeling and increases bone density. So what we're looking at here is the difference between a healthy bone and a bone with osteoporosis. If you look at this x-ray close enough, see how thick that lining is along the side of the femur? That is a very calcium-rich bone. That bone is dense. There's a lot of structure there. The muscles and bones are being well fed. The osteoporosis style bone is going to be much thinner in the that thick lining. You're going to see a lot more of the hollow center of that bone if it's an osteoporosis attacked bone. The stress from weight-bearing exercises leads to a temporary increase in bone resorption, which is the breaking down of the old bone, followed by bone formation, the production of your new bones, to strengthen and adapt bone structures. So strength training also enhances the body's ability to retain calcium and vitamin D. So again, it all works together. We're coming back to those same subjects each time, the protein, the calcium, and the vitamin D, along with the strength training. So that's the actual chemical actions happening in the bone. And ultimately, let's talk about everyday life. Strength training prevents functional decline. What are our everyday tasks that we're doing? Stair climbing, lifting up the groceries, carrying the laundry. Any of you have your laundry on a different floor than most of your living? How much of a pain in the neck is that, right? I still think it's so cool when I visit houses that have laundry chutes. I think that would just be so fun. I might accidentally throw a kid down there. Accidentally. Feeding pets. Do any of you have pets? Do you buy the big bags of food? Saves some money, but it's a pain in the neck, right? But these are all just everyday tasks that, you know, I've heard people say, you know, I've had back pain before. My doctor doesn't want me deadlifting. Oh, no? How the heck do you get your groceries in? How do you feed your dog? That is a deadlift. You know, it hurts to lift something over my... How do you reach the stuff up in your cabinet? Everyday movement requires some form of exercise. It also improves our balance and stability. Muscle development in the core and lower body absolutely reduces the risk of falls and injuries. I work with all of my clients, no matter what their age, on unilateral work, meaning just one side of their body. Do we walk with both our feet at the same time? One at a time, right? We don't. You look a little funny doing it. I feel free to try it out. It's more fun in heels. But we move 1 foot at a time. We lift our leg to come up onto the curb one at a time. And that is a different style of movement than that unilateral, the contralateral squatting, standing, deadlift, and so on. So that balance and stability is a huge part of training. I have people move the weight from one side of their body to the other and maintain the balance, or lift a heavy weight up on one side without caving over to the side, using those oblique muscles to keep your shoulders stacked over your hips. It doesn't have to be a big, complex thing. And then endurance and energy. How many of you said, I'm too tired to exercise? I've said it. It's okay, you can raise your hand. It's okay. My tip for that, go for 5 minutes. Go for 5 minutes. If you could get through the first 5 minutes and you still say, I'm too tired, go home and be done. That's fine. Today you're too tired. That's okay. Give yourself a pass. Have grace. That's fine. Most of the time, once you get started, the endorphins start, and you're already there, so you might as well just keep going. And before you know it, you've actually completed it. And then you walk out feeling better that you've already done it. Right? Come on, we all feel better after we've done it, right? So I'm going to try not to throw stuff at you. Sorry about that. But we do have a deal. You're welcome to use your cane if you need to get me. All right, you know where it is. All right. Here's my favorite part. Let's talk about myths. Raise your hand if you've heard. Let's just say first if you've even heard it. These are just things I hear frequently, and just because they're common, it doesn't mean they're true. I'll get bulky, maybe manly. Oh, I love hearing you say that. Anybody else ever think that? I'm gonna own up to it. I did. I absolutely thought, if I start lifting heavy weights, I'm gonna start looking manly. I want to look feminine and dainty. That's only for younger women. Raise your hand if that one has set in. Yeah. I kind of felt that way when I was taking that certification, and I was 20 years older than some of the other ones in that class for sure. Now they're my best friends, and I'm out lifting some of them. Some of them, not many of them. All right, this one is real. Lifting heavy is way too hard. Anybody feel like that sometimes? You see it and you're like, what is that? Let's talk about these. I want you guys to meet my friend Sarah. Beautiful girl, right? Does she look manly? Let's be honest. You can break it down. Does she look manly to you? I think she looks mighty feminine. Here she is, squatting with 124 pounds up here. We call that in the rack. Do you know how much effort it takes to get 124 pounds worth of kettlebells, even up to your shoulders, standing straight up, let alone to drop your body weight down and come back up with it? Sarah's been doing this for upwards of 12 years. Sarah was the example that I used to my coach 3 years ago when I said, I'm afraid I'm gonna look manly if you start having me go up in weights. She said, Danielle, you got a long ways to go. You got a long ways to go before you got 124 in the rack. And she's right, I am up to 90 in the rack. I can't do 124 yet. I'm up to 90 in the rack. Sarah's way ahead of me. That's a big gap. This is not a manly looking woman in any way. Most of the time we hear women say, I want to look toned. What does toned mean?
Firm.
Firm. How do you get firm? How do you get firm? Hey, so we can wave goodbye and this doesn't keep going after we stop up here, right? So how do we look toned?
By working out.
By having muscle, right? Tone is having more muscle than body fat.
More protein.
So how do we do that? Protein, calcium, vitamin D, and resistance training all come together. The other myth that we talked about was, I'm too old. I'm too old. Here's a couple buddies of mine. Lois is 60. Lois is swinging an 80-pound kettlebell right there. A kettlebell swing is in the horizontal plane of motion. Most of the people who I work with start training a kettlebell swing with 20 to 25 pounds, just to be able to learn how to control that plane of motion without losing their balance. Think about having that much weight shifting in just a couple of seconds' time. 80 pounds is pretty significant. 80 pounds is like a fifth grader. She's swinging a fifth grader at 60 years old. This is my girlfriend, Diane. Did any of you know Diane? She's local. She's a friend of mine. Diane trains with me on Monday mornings. She's about to be 70. That is a 35-pound plate over her head while she marches. She's not too old, not at all. There's no such thing as too old. You're never too late to begin. And that third myth that we talked about is lifting heavy is way too hard. It is. Lifting heavy is hard. We can do hard things though. And we don't start heavy, we progress to heavy. This is my friend Carrie, who I work with a couple of days a week. And as I said, Carrie started with a 25-pound kettlebell in her swings. This one is 70 pounds. She didn't do it overnight. We progressed to it. And it's critical that we safely progress, that we work within ranges of motion that our bodies can do. To me, exercise is the celebration of movement. It's the celebration of what our bodies can do. It is not punishment for what we've eaten or a means to avoiding a horrible outcome that we're all trying to avoid. It is a celebration of what we can do. So let's look at some practical tips for starting a strength training routine at any age. Again, we all start somewhere, so we're gonna keep it simple. We're gonna start with simple movement patterns: squats, lunges, push-ups, rows, and deadlifts. Squats, bending at the knee, dropping the hips. Any of you who have been into my class know that we actually even have someone who comes in with a cane. We find a way to make squats doable from where you're at. So maybe your squat is sitting down in a chair and getting back up without your hands. Maybe your squat is holding on, I'll give it right back to you for your footrest, is holding on to something in front of you and coming up and down from there. It doesn't have to be with 140 pounds in the rack to start. And maybe it does get up there, and I want to know when it does. Let me know, I'm going to come cheer you on. But when you come to my class or whether you work with somebody to help you kind of progress through this, they might give you some dumbbells to work on it, that's fine. But you start from where you're at. Lunges is one foot in front of the other, and then coming down into that lunge position. Again, that's working in that unilateral plane. And again, some of us need something to hold on to. Some of you are gonna go lower than other people in that pattern. Push-ups, who could do a push-up on the floor? Yeah, all right, I love it. I'm not gonna make you show me, but I am gonna show all of you, every one of you can do it on the wall. In and out from the wall. Or my favorite is, well, the popcorn's in the microwave, I use the counter. So, that's one of my favorite ones. Rows are where you're pulling that weight up, using the muscles up in your upper back. It's picking up the dog's food. Again, lots of different ways to do this. And then deadlifts. I'm gonna use my computer bag. You've got your weight down here, and it's standing up straight and tall with the weight. Bringing it down, getting a hinge in the hip, a bend in the knee, and coming up and down with it. It doesn't have to be super heavy. I'll tell you what, 2 weeks ago I brought in 25-pound kettlebells for deadlifts, and everyone, I can't do that. Every one of them did that. Most of you have purses that weigh more than that. I can't look at it. I guarantee that purse weighs as much as a kettlebell. So I'm here to tell you, don't be afraid of it. You can do it. And you don't need a big gym. A couple of small tools. Body weight alone is a great way to get started with just some of the simple things I just shared with you. Small dumbbells, we've got some here. I'm sure you could get access to them whenever you needed them while you're here. And resistance bands are all easy ways to implement some resistance in these movements. And it doesn't take all day. The CDC recommends 2 times a week for 20 to 30 minutes. If you want to do more, great, but that's it. It's not a very complicated process, and you can do it. Here's some more tips for staying motivated. Make an appointment. Put your workout in your calendar and keep your date. I've talked with some of you about calendars. I've talked with some of you about writing it in there, in ink. In ink, right? In ink. Put it in your calendar. We're gonna talk about that. No pencil, ink, you're worth it. You're worth making a real appointment for. So, make an appointment. This is my time. If I made an appointment with Mary for coffee, I'm not blowing Mary off. If we're going out for happy hour, I'm not blowing her off. I'm gonna show up. If I make an appointment with me for my deadlift training, I'm showing up. I do have appointments twice a week I do on Zoom with my girlfriends from other parts of the country where we work out together on Zoom. And it's some of my favorite time every week. And I have standalone appointments with myself for exercise. And it keeps me accountable. What gets measured gets managed. We've heard this time and time again. Track your progress. I'm not saying track every single thing you do. I did 15 bicep curls with 5-pound dumbbells. If you want to get that specific, go ahead. Or just track, I worked out for 15 minutes today. Or I worked out 3 times this week. Or I did 5 different exercises. You can set whatever goal it is that's going to motivate you to keep going. There's tons of different goals. It doesn't have to be the same for every person, but pick something and track it for a while. And you'll see that you get excited about your movement on it, and it keeps you going. Set SMART goals. Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. I even have a cheat sheet I can hand you if you want to take that with you and make out some SMART goals, or I can set up one-on-one appointments with you to talk about setting up SMART goals for how you can make small changes to set a very specific goal in a specific amount of time. One of the women who I met with last Friday wanted to move from walking 2 miles a day up to 4 miles a day. So we said, okay, that's within reason. When do we want to do it by? By October. So by October, I can be back in with silver sneakers, feeling like I can be a part of something in a community before it gets cold and I'm stuck back by myself not wanting to go outdoors. Perfect. All right, here's how we're going to do it. I want you to start walking 5 extra minutes with each of your walks per week. And when you get to a week where that feels like it's too much, then just stay there for another week before you add more. Small, measurable steps are going to help you get there. Don't go into it saying, I've never run a 5K and I want to run in 5K next month. I'm going to start going. Well, for some people that's possible, but for most of us, it takes a very gradual process. So that's where we go with that. Everything's more fun with friends. And getting an exercise buddy or finding a class is such a great way to increase movement and find new ways to move. I encourage you to try multiple different options with multiple different people. So you never know who's going to encourage you in a different way or who you're going to encourage and inspire. And flip the script in your head. It's not something you have to do. I have to go exercise today. I haven't exercised in 4 or 5 days. No, I get to go do this. I get to go move my body. I get to go feel good about this perfectly imperfect body moving in ways that other people wish they could move. Flip that idea in your head, and before long, you get addicted to the process. Little recap. Strength training is the #1 action we can take as women to fight the loss of bone and muscle mass as we age. Our doctors can prescribe us different pills to take. We can read about all kinds of different things, and we can try to manifest. But actual strength training is the best action we could take. The CDC recommends strength training for 20 to 30 minutes 2 times a week. Work up to it if you have to. If you can't do 20 to 30 minutes twice a week, start with 10 minutes twice a week. Work up to it. Start from where you're at. It's okay. We all start somewhere. And then there's the progression. Body weight exercises are better than no exercises at all. Adding low weight when you're able to is better than body weight. Increasing the weight or the reps is better than staying stagnant over a long period of time. These are just small steps you can take over time. It doesn't have to happen all at once. And this is the one that I think we are the most natural at. And I'm so grateful. I absolutely love being a woman because I love the way women take care of each other. Cheer one another on. Invite others to the party. Come on, we're gonna go try out this class. We're gonna go for a walk. We've all got our cool weighted vests. Let's go walk down the street together. We're gonna look like a gang. That's cool. I love that on the bike trail. Any of you ever walk the bike trail and see the women in their weighted vests together? I'm like, that's so cool. They've got they're a biker gang. Physical strength is the tip of the iceberg. When I say I'm an evolution ambassador, I love helping women exercising in the gym because that's the low-hanging fruit. It's where most of us start. Oh, I want to just tone up. I just want, okay, cool, let's start there. But then the confidence comes, and they start taking it outside of the gym, and they start bringing it into their conversations at home, much to their husband's chagrin sometimes. They bring it to work. They bring it to their children. They bring it to their friendships, and they start encouraging other women. And you know what? Have any of you ever heard the phrase, hurt people hurt people? Yes. Strong people help other people develop strength. And I see that amongst women all the time. Those are my notes, my friends. I hope that this was helpful to you. What did I leave out? What questions can I help you with?
Real quick, was there something, a reference to Fight Like a Girl?
Just in general, that I wanted you to take action.
Right.
That's the fight.
Do you know Mike Scott by any chance?
I don't know Mike Scott. Should I?
Well, he wrote a song called Fight Like a Girl.
Oh, I should have had a play-in song today. Mike Scott, Fight Like a Girl.
Yeah, he sings with my brother in a duo. And he wrote a song, and it was about a woman that had breast cancer. And he just kept saying, fight like a girl.
Fight Like a Girl.
So he ended up writing the song, beautiful
I
song.
love that.
So Google it.
I'm gonna Google it. Let's go. I want all of you to Google it. Let's check it out. Let's give him some love. Who else? I saw a raised hand back here.
My
Yes.
thing was that really find your own way to do something. My doctor had told me like 2 years ago, he wanted me to walk an hour a day.
Sure.
And I just sort of in my head said, there's no way I can take an hour out of my day. I have to do this.
Yeah.
I can't do an hour. So I said to myself, well, I'll just plan to do a half an hour a day. Well, you know what? I wasn't even doing a half an hour a day. So then I just said, look, if I can do 15 minutes today, I'll do 20 minutes tomorrow.
Yeah.
And after a while, I was getting the time in, but it was
A
the
gradual
way I
build-up.
did it, and not having him tell me you gotta do this, you gotta.
Yeah.
I said anything that I'm doing is an improvement.
Amen.
I keep and being able to accomplish, 20 minutes a day.
Yes.
It's like, wow, I managed to, in my day to take 20 minutes.
I love that you celebrated your win, because we get into this mindset that it's all or nothing. I can't do an hour, so I'm not going to do any of it. You decided, no, I'm going to take a small step. I'm going to make the investment that I'm able to make now. And that starts growing over time. And, back to some of those other tips I was talking about, inviting a friend, setting a schedule, all of those kind of make it easier to find those wins. But that's like an important tip I should probably add to this presentation as well, is celebrating the wins. I talked about tracking your progress, but really taking time, probably once a month, acknowledge it. Maybe not with like a trip to the bakery, I don't know, well, sometimes. But that's how I grew up. Oh my gosh, everything was, let's go down to Franklin Avenue. Okay. And I still love it. And I will tell you guys, I still eat a cake or a cookie in one form every single day. To some extent. Everything in moderation, What else can I cover? Yes?
How do you measure, when you gain muscle or increase your bone mass? How do you know
Yeah.
you're progressing? How do you gauge that?
So there are tools for it. That DEXA scan that I spoke about at the beginning, that's the most expensive, ultimate measuring tool that there is. Many gyms have what's called an in-body scan, and Amazon sells scales for less than $100 that you could have in your own house. That some are better than others, but that will tell you not just your gravitational pull to the earth, but also tell you your muscle mass versus your bone density. And I think they're fantastic tools. They're not 100% accurate, but if you use the same device at a consistent time frame. So for me, it used to be every Monday morning. Every Monday morning. Holding myself accountable for whatever decisions I made over the weekend. And a lot of people say, oh, it's the weekend, it's not when I'm gonna exercise, it's not when I'm gonna stay on my eating plan and throw everything out. And you know what, if that's the balance in your life that works for you, great. For my goals at this point in my life, it doesn't work for me. Now I have to be a little bit more thoughtful about that. But I stayed consistent about every Monday morning, the scale got put in the exact same spot on the bathroom floor, and I got on it. And for me, it was, I didn't have the fancy scale at that point in time. It was just the gravitational pull one. That and a measuring tape. And I would measure waist circumference and hip circumference every Monday morning and track it in my calendar and then go back and look at it.
So if you're building muscle mass, it's normal that you would gain weight somewhat. So it's a
Somewhat.
balance. But
So-
I worked with this guy who used to work out. He was built unbelievably, I mean, you know, like this. And he would tell us women in the office, don't weigh yourself.
Yeah.
It's all how your clothes fit.
It's true, it's true. So I will tell you, when I first started strength training, I was very much on the cosmetic end of it. And I went from 185 to 115 in a relatively small period of time. I'm wearing the same clothes today that I wore when I was 115 pounds, but I'm 140 pounds now. I'm awfully proud of the muscle that I've built. I'm wearing the same size clothes that I wore when you could count my ribs. My stomach's a little bit thicker. I'm okay with that. I also know I can lift a lot more weight, and God help the person who ever comes at one of my kids. So, there is weight gain with muscle gain, but it looks very different on our bodies than it does when it's fat versus muscle. Anything else? I know we're over the 2 o'clock hour. I didn't mean to keep you guys this long. You were supposed to use the cane.
Oh,
I'm happy to stick around and talk to anyone who has questions, but otherwise, thank you so much for joining me. I will be back on May 6th for Movement is Medicine, Body, Mind, and Soul. I'd love to see any of you who are able to join us. Thank you so much.